Hi, my name is George Brown, and I'm here to talk about the next chapter in Metamorphosis, dealing with the mixed mode operating models. And what we mean by mixed mode operating models is the difference between a traditional perpetual license model and the new licensing models, be it subscription, SPLA, cloud, however you want to call it. Now today I'm specifically here to talk to the ISV community and talking about the complexities you will face as you deal with both these operating models. Now hopefully today I'm dealing with the management team from the ISVs, and what I want to share with you today are the myths that we've come to identify over the last 3 years related to these mixed mode operating models, deal with some of our realizations and some of the learnings from other ISVs across the globe, and then share with you what we believe to be the 5 key business rules for making this transition as an ISV. I want to share with everybody one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein, and it goes something like this, which is, we can't solve today's problem with the same thinking that created it. And what that means as we talk to our mixed mode operating models is that partners appear to us to be trying to solve the problems of tomorrow with the same thinking that's created those problems. In other words, we haven't got our heads wrapped around the fact that tomorrow's paradigm is different than yesterday's. And in fact, we need to have a more deliberate, more planned approach to how to solve those problems. And what I'm really getting to there is that the very people that we need to solve the problems, and that would be our marketing people, our sales people, the leadership teams I'm talking to today, are pretty much focused on the business that has got us here today. And that in order to get across this chasm into the next paradigm, we need some new thinking. So one of the things I'm going to challenge you on throughout Metamorphosis is, how do we get some new thinking into this process, and how do we break the model of yesterday so we can escape into the lucrative model of repeatable IP sold en masse to multiple customers. I want to contrast for a moment the differences between the traditional operating model and that new operating model for an ISV. There's a little bit more complexity here as we think about it, and I want to go over that detail by detail. So first and foremost, now most ISVs have a mixed mode model. In other words, today when I say mixed mode, mixed selling operations. They sell both direct to end corporate buyers as well as through a channel. Now, and the direct business is typically facilitated through a direct sales operation within the ISV. Now, in the future, if we look at all the research available to us today, we can see that there is a bias from corporate buyers to deal directly with the ISV. So we think in the future there's going to be a more intense engagement model necessary on the ISV website. We think that more of your revenue will come direct, almost anonymously, or could be anonymously, depending on the product sophistication you have. Also a mix from your direct sales force, if you have one today, and of course through the Microsoft ecosystem. As an ISV, as you go through an ecosystem, we have to remember that key to being successful throughout the repeatable business is being able to access a piece of the revenue stream from the customer and apportion it correctly to the ISV as well as the partner. That will pose additional challenges, which we'll cover in later chapters for the ISV. Now, the other difference will be is that we're going to shift, of course, from a traditional time and materials basis. A number of ISVs today, in fact, the vast majority of ISVs today in the Microsoft ecosystem have professional services. So we'll go from a time and materials statement of work type concept in the ISV to a more templatized, one price fits all, not one price fits all, but one price covers the whole project, including the use of your IP, perhaps the Microsoft IP wrapped in there, as well as the services. So that's going to be a fairly significant change in terms of the operating model, because that's going to shift the resources we have. And that shift will move. I mean, you think about it, an ISV today is technically focused. We have core developers, we have Q&A, we have support personnel, we have channel management people, etc. But predominantly, if we look at the mix of resources in that grouping, heavily weighted towards technical. Now, because of my first point that I mentioned, whereby the customer is predisposed to deal with you directly, it will mean that heavier weighting will have to be placed on your marketing and sales operations, both from a point of view of acquiring new customers at a cost-effective way, but also making sure that you can be found and that you can be bought from in a way that's convenient and easy. Now, one thing that won't change much is that the software to services ratios aren't that high today in an ISV. In fact, they're below $1 in services for every dollar in licenses that are sold through an ISV. However, we expect that to continue to go down. So we expect an averaging down of the overall service values that you deliver to customers as we make this evolution. Now, the good news about that is it increases your gross margin. We have a hard time in our business getting over a 40% gross margin in services. As an ISV, realizing between 65 and 80% gross margin on your license components, that's relatively straightforward, and that should be the goal as we go forward. Now, one thing that will challenge us as we go through this model, today's operating model means that a customer pays for the license up front. They acquire a license from you in a capital expense mode and use it, and then of course we hope to sell them on maintenance to get some recurring revenue stream out of that. Could be 16%, 18%, 20%, whatever that number is that you have today. Now, as we move to the future, that's going to be on a subscription basis. That would be a case where they pay one fee. It includes the maintenance, often includes support. You've got to think about it that way, and it's paid over time. And those amortization periods vary. If you're going to the section in Metamorphosis around pricing and packaging, we'll talk there about the amortization rates and what that will, how many months we think that would be, etc. But suffice it to say, that is going to be a significant change in the operating model, and I think one of the barriers to really pay attention to if you're an ISV today. How will we make that transition, right? And this also, again, highlights the importance of our unwind rate. How do we manage the unwind rate so we keep our cash flow until the other cash flow kicks in? Now, today's success, if you're an ISV today, a big part of your success is, maintaining the functionality you have, adding new functions based on what the customer wants. But then a big part of it is maintaining version continuity. If you want to be certified for Microsoft Dynamics, you have to be on the current version. So a big part of our effort is focused there. Now, as we make our way into the future, into that new model, it's not that we won't have to remain current on the Microsoft version, it's that the formalization of your product management is going to have to move in such a way that you can deliver IP or value-added functionality at a point in time where a contract's about to renew. Think about a mobile telephone operator today. Isn't it ironic that about 6 months before your contract is due, that's when all the rewards come through. That's when you get the new phones, that's when you get the new package offerings, etc. But think about that model as a way of learning around what we need to do in our future, and that is release code units, functionality, IP upgrades, support plan changes, etc., tied to the actual renewal of that contract, because managing our churn rate, making sure that we re-up the customer for the next annual or 2-year or 3-year term, that is going to be pivotal to our success. That's a big change. See, in the past, we managed to a version and we managed to create enough functionality to justify our support contract. In the future, we're going to have to manage our R&D in such a way that we have IP to release that makes the customer want to re-up with us and re-sign a long-term contract. That's going to be pivotal to your success as we go forward. Now, when I talk to you about a mixed mode operating model, I don't want you to think that that's the way that I believe you need to go, or that we believe you need to go fundamentally. Because there's no debate that purity in strategy and purity in operating model pays. There was some research conducted in 2007 where they examined 2,351 companies, looking at the difference between a pure operating model and strategy and one that had a mixed mode operating model and strategy. It covered construction, manufacturing, business services, which of course we fall into. And it was conclusive that in none of the 2,351 cases did a mixed mode operating model outperform purity. Now, you could be thinking to yourself, what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say to everybody is that over time, and I'm saying over a period of time, the faster you get there, the better. In other words, the faster you get to a pure operating model of one type, the more effective and successful you will be. With a caution note. And that is that we have an issue of an unwind rate we need to manage, and it's forcing us to be in this mixed mode for a period of time. But make no bones about it, what you need to do is get a very clear strategy, a very clear operating model, and only one of those. And the faster you get to that, the more successful you will be, the more profitable you'll be, the simpler your business will actually become. So by virtue of definition, then, this mixed mode operating model is temporary. It cannot hold over a long period of time. There are far too many complexities for small to medium-sized organizations to manage, and all that happens if we sustain this over a long period of time is that we will begin the erosion of our bottom line till there is none left, okay? So complex because we want to be pure in our strategy, but necessary for bridging this gap into the new operating model. Now here's our biggest problem. All right, the very people we need to help us get to the new model do not want to break it. Right? There was a good book by John Clemmer written one time called If It Isn't Broke, Break It. And it implied that if your operating model wasn't broken, that you should attack it before your competitors did. Right? And really what we're saying here is that the very people we need to make this transition are fairly invested in you staying exactly where you are. If you're a management team member, you might be thinking, yes, this is scary. I don't want to go anywhere. All right, because the board of directors you have, if you have one, may resist it. You as a set of owners may resist it because we don't know what this will look like. I can assure you your sales and marketing people will resist this change. It's one of our dilemmas. Why will they resist it? Because we don't know what this looks like on the other side. The service delivery people, as soon as they hear the notion that we won't be going down the path of a customized solution or a fairly detailed analysis in terms of what that customer might need and building a bespoke custom solution for that customer, are less interested in it. So getting to the other side in terms of our repeatable, scalable, valuable business based on our IP with good recurring revenue is going to take some work. And we're going to have some change management efforts involved here. We're going to have some rethinking of this. But I want to move on now to some of the myths I think we need to bust as part of this, because there's some myths that exist in the channel today, and get on with the realizations of what we've discovered as SalesWorks, working with partners around the world in this transition to this new paradigm. What I want to talk about next is really debunking the myths that we've collected over the last several years as we've traveled the world surrounding ISVs. All right, and the first myth I want to debunk is that, adding some type of new licensing method or some new sort of pricing or packaging method that would allow partners or consumers to buy that product in a way that's different than today is unnecessary. One of the attitudes in the ISVs is, well, if they want my code, they just need to just buy it, or too bad, they don't need it. And that's a little bit of a what I call it, a high-handed approach, because of course in the world of agile and extreme programming, and in terms of what the customers are expecting, it puts a lot of risk on the ISV, because if we don't, as ISVs, adopt our pricing models to deal with the new realities, then we could expect competitors to simply replace the code we have to offer. And I think that's one of the biggest threats and one of the biggest myths we have to hit on the head for ISVs. In other words, we need to think about how do we get our licensing model at the ISV level available to both perpetual, right, to SPLA, to repeatable, to high volume, to cloud, regardless of what that method is. How do we serve up our licensing pricing models in such a way that we can deliver it? Okay. Second myth that I want to attack from an ISV perspective is that there's an expectation that before they can go to market, they need a fully baked, fully cooked solution with all the bells and whistles. And one of the things that I would say is that customers expect the code to work, so don't get me wrong, they expect very high quality code, they expect it to solve a business problem, but that in today's world of licensing small components of software in different methods, the customer is looking for a solution that deals with the problem specifically. We call those point solutions. It could be a small piece of functionality that is used as a wedge offering to access a market, an addressable market. So when you think about it, although we agree that you need a full solution over time, what we see emerging are very small applications that start out a couple of point solutions, penetrate a market, and then build around those solutions. When we think about architecting the solutions, then we can think about getting to market a lot faster than originally contemplated. So that's the second myth we'd like to debunk. In other words, we don't have to have a full scale, all bells, all whistles, all singing application to get to the market. We could get there with point solutions. We could build around it after that. The third myth that I want to attack in terms of ISVs is that the very belief that the same people can do dual roles. And what I mean by that, and I've had some deep discussions with some large-scale ISVs. Some of them have even cited their development teams to be dinosaurs. And not dinosaurs, but think of it this way. A number of the development teams that we have today grew up in a 4GL language, very familiar with the database schema and architecture of the application that they work with, be it Nav, be it AX, be it GP, be it CRM. They're very familiar with how that operates, right? And moving to a new model which says we have to attack it from, at the very least, an agile programming methodology or an extreme programming methodology is challenging to them, right? It's new technology, it's new ways of working, and at the end of the day, they may or may not be able to do it. So certainly I think we would challenge the idea that the same people can do both roles. And we would argue that on your sales side, your marketing side, your services side, etc. We have to think about this as a new business, as I previously talked about. Now, the fourth myth I want to dispel is the need to formalize your management your development processes and formalize that, because when we think about our R&D today and how we create it, depending on the sophistication of your development team, it will also depend on how formally managed it is. But think about it in the future. Today we manage to a code release around a Microsoft version. In the future, we need to manage not only to that code release around Microsoft, but we need to also manage to our customers' contract expiry dates. And it's going to mean a lot more formalization of that development team. And so we don't think it's going to be as simple in that development team as just simply adding a little bit of software in there. It's going to be a lot more complex, a lot more management, a lot more emphasis on the product management, a lot more emphasis on marketing. So I want to share with you some of our key realizations now, having been at this for 3 years and looked around the world to various partner types and look at what we've come to learn. And my first realization that I'd want to share with you is that unless the solution you're currently offering your customers today is truly strategic in nature, you will be supplanted eventually. And what I mean by that is you'll eventually be overtaken because, as I said earlier, the V in value-added reseller must change from a V in terms of services to a V in terms of functional value, package value, support value, something else that the customer wants and needs as they go forward. I also want to put a big caution flag down on this, because you think about this, we have to be vigilant and constantly aware of what I would call born in the new paradigm competitors. Every day we are faced with a new assault from a new application, a new type of partner, a new type of offering in our marketplace that has none of the legacy baggage we have and comes out either at a price point or a functionality level that almost makes it impossible for us to compete with. So being complacent now or thinking that it's not time to move now is a very dangerous thing to be thinking of, right? So think about that. Is what we're offering today truly strategic and valuable to the customers? or could it be replaced tomorrow by somebody we never thought about? And what we're seeing around the globe is that is occurring today. Now, the other realization we've come to is that irrespective of what type of partner you are, your ability to leverage the knowledge and domain expertise you've gained over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years in this business is critical. And taking that expertise we have and converting that from a consultative nature to a packaged nature or a packaged offering. And that could be, come in terms of productized IP. It can come in terms of a combination of productized IP with packaged services. It can come in a way of packaged services, etc. But the key realization we've come to is that we've got to get on with making our solutions more consumable to the customer and by productizing and packaging those solutions. Now, the third realization we've come to is that this new paradigm will eventually cannibalize your existing customer base. Some of you I've known for 20 or 25 years have hundreds upon hundreds of customers and feeling pretty safe today. But what we need to know is that, customers will start to move to this new paradigm over time. This inflection point is getting nearer and nearer to us. And so that if we don't make our customers aware that we are in the business with these new offerings and these new packages, that eventually we could risk losing them. And that's probably the biggest risk we have. And when you think about this, look at your own offerings today, what you broadcast on your websites, what you broadcast in your blogs, what you broadcast in your video blogs, right? Are you really talking about the new paradigm in computing and how your company services that? Or are we dealing just with the same old, same old? That's an easy test. You can easily look at that. But if you don't cannibalize your own customer base, make them aware of what you're doing, how you're addressing this paradigm shift, someone else will, and it won't be very pleasant for you. Our last realization is that, the organizational immune systems, our ability to stop change inside of our organization is one of the biggest wrestling matches we're going to have. Having now been in this market for 3 years, trying to work through the changes with partners, I realize just how difficult it is. And I want to share that with you with the hope that you understand that undergoing this strategic change is critical and that realizing that you will meet resistance. So that's going to mean, if you look at the principles of managing strategic change as it exists in the Dynamics Partner Academy, that's a great program, by the way, to supplement this whole initiative you're about to undergo. It really talks about forming the team that will help lead the change in your organization. That's going to be critical to you as well. I want to wrap up this section in Metamorphosis with the 5 rules to a successful transition. Rule 1 is that in order not to implode in this mixed mode operating model, we need to have clear separation between our old business model and our new business model. And what that means is that we need to take a small team from our existing organization, 1 or 2 or 3 people, and break them into a separate team to undertake this change within your organization and start down this path to the new paradigm. All right? That's also going to mean that we need to have leadership support that team. So on that team, I would expect that the president, or at least at very minimum a vice president, lead that team so the organization understands the importance of getting on with the future in this business. Now, the second rule to a successful transition, if we have a team and we have thought leadership on that team, the second thing we need to do is to make sure we have line of sight into what the metrics are. So at minimum, a departmental P&L, so that that team can see how they're doing and we can measure how we're making progress and how we are improving our overall performance in this new paradigm. Rule 3 is going to require that we hire new people. What I'm saying is we'll have a split off team within our own organization, people that know our culture, how we work, etc. We're going to start refuturing our organization. Then we're going to add new people to that organization from the outside. Now, why am I saying from the outside? Is because fundamentally today, partners' cost structures are so high that we will not be able to make this transition unless we can average down our cost. That means we need younger, we need bright, we need talented, energetic people with a cost basis lower than our average cost today. We also need that new thinking that comes with them. All right, so we're going to need new hires. We're going to need to average our costs down. Because remember, your competitor tomorrow isn't coming from the same city as you. They're coming from a different country, a different region with a cost base substantially lower. That's one of the risks we have in this new paradigm. Rule 4, we must unwind our traditional business, perpetual business, in an orderly fashion at a percentage that would allow us to ensure our cash flow and profitability until that transition is complete. Now, as part of Metamorphosis, there's a detailed modeling tool. Working with your local PDC, they can help you with that to determine exactly what is the unwind rate you need to have as your business. All right, so it's going to be critical as we go forward. Now, Rule 5, and we could say this is critical in all businesses, but cash flow will be king. And what I mean by that is that our cash flow as a partner, a traditional Microsoft Dynamics partner, has been, quite good actually. The way we receive money from the customer, the way the payment terms we have with Microsoft, etc., facilitates a very good cash flow system for us. As we move to this new paradigm, our cash flow is going to suffer in the early stages and become robust in the later stages. It's really what we'd like to have as a partner business, but that first period of time, that first 2 years or 3 years of our transition is going to be challenging. It's going to require acute focus on our cash flow, acute focus on the contracts in terms of how we get paid, etc. And it's going to be one of the most important parts that will help us solve the problem of moving to this new paradigm. So in concluding our segment today, in terms of the mixed mode operating models, I hope I've been able to illustrate to you the differences between our old model and our new model. I hope I've been able to debunk the myths that we have, because I think if you go forward with the myths in your mind, you're not going to find your way through to a successful transition. I also hope that I've highlighted some of the key issues that you have to pay attention to as you go forward. Now, clearly, the amount of content we have in Metamorphosis, the amount of content that exists in the Dynamics Partner Academy to help you through this process is significant. So I'm going to challenge you to have each one of your management team members review the content in Metamorphosis in its entirety, and then think about how you can educate the rest of your organization around this process so they can all contribute to this move. We believe that an informed partner team working through this process is better than just 1 or 2 people in the organization making this attempt. So please leverage the information we have, the content that we have, the amount of programs we have to help drive your organization through this process successfully. There will be no accidental entrepreneurs in the new paradigm. Everybody that makes it across the bridge to the new paradigm is going to be planned, deliberate, with excellent team involvement. So my challenge for you today is to get your team moving, get them started now, and let's hope for the best as we get through this transition.